Hey guys, we are back for a brand new episode of the podcast, episode 25, MMA Diagnosis. So today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Bashir Somchai Ahmad. He's a godfather of MMA in Pakistan. Before we get into the podcast, I'd like to thank Shaheen and MMA Management, best management team in the fight game. So if you enjoy these kind of podcasts, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. So let's get straight into it. Hello guys, it's me, Hammad from MMA Diagnosis, and today with me I have a very special guest. He is the godfather of MMA in Pakistan. He's a senior manager and matchmaker for One Warrior Series and the senior manager at One Championship, Mr. Bashir Ahmad. How are you, brother?
Good. Thank you for having me.
And you're currently in Thailand, I believe. So,
Yep. Yeah. Bangkok.
and what time is it 2 there? It's 2 p.m., right?
Yeah. At 2 p.m. Yeah.
And So today we're here to talk about Shaheen Academy. But before we get started, I just want to ask you a few other things before we get into that. You're called the Godfather of MMA in Pakistan. So if you could elaborate on how you got that name, because when did that start?
Um, how that nickname actually came from an article that somebody wrote about me uh, before my first match in One Championship when I made my debut in 2013. So there was a Asian MMA blog that called me the Godfather of MMA in Pakistan, and it just stuck from there. Yeah,
What?
and it stuck from there. Yeah, and as to why anyone would even say that, you know, I am the person who really got the thing going. There's a lot of people that deserve credit for helping build a sport in Pakistan, but no one was really doing anything about it. And it just really wasn't until that I decided to make the move to Pakistan and really begin to do something. I mean, it really all started with just a Facebook page. And at that time, this was in 2010, people were not as social media savvy as they are now. So just to be able to utilize that to bring all these different people together onto one platform. And then, just taking my own experience that I had from training around the world at the time. I had had more exposure than with international MMA than other people had.
Yeah.
I kind of became the face and the leader for the growth of MMA in Pakistan.
So, when you came to Pakistan, was the motive always to introduce mixed martial arts, or was it kind of like it just happened?
Oh no, the motive was totally to introduce mixed martial arts.
Because
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because I saw you first in 2013, so it was on the Vice, the Fightland, right?
Oh,
Mixed
okay,
martial arts
right.
in Pakistan. So that's when I first saw you. So I was just
Yeah.
randomly searching MMA, and then that came up, and I was like, "What?" I was
Oh,
shocked because I'm from
okay.
the
Yeah,
UK and
yeah,
I never heard of
yeah.
MMA in Pakistan. So
Right.
I clicked on that, and honestly, when I first saw you, I thought this guy's gonna have an accent. And
Uh-huh.
I don't know how much he knows about MMA. And then I hear the accent. I'm like, wait, he's not from Pakistan. Uh,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then I realized you're from America.
yeah.
And so how did you like? So you got your training around the world. So
Yeah, I mean, at that time, like, and I had trained in the United States. I had trained in Thailand. I had trained in Cambodia. Actually, I had even been to India at that point and visited Tiger's Gym, which is like the home base and the starting point for Indian MMA.
wow, and yeah, so when I saw that, I was like, wow. And then I was showing like everyone around me, like my dad and everyone was like, look, this guy's from Pakistan. He's a
Yeah,
Pakistani fighter. Because
yeah,
I think before that documentary, you had your first fight in one. And
yeah.
then I remember watching your second fight. And then I don't know if you won that one. But there was one where you were bleeding and then I think you rear naked choked the guy. And then you were screaming. Was that the third one
Uh,
in one?
no, the fights where I've been bleeding,
Generally.
that was the first one, and then that
Okay,
was
yeah. It might have been that one, yeah.
I think maybe the fourth one where I fought Amir Khan, but I lost that one versus Amir
Yeah.
Khan. Um, Rear naked choke.
It
That
must have been
was
your
I had one rear naked choke versus that was my third fight versus
which,
Thai guy Kanapong Kohenkel. Yeah,
yeah. And I remember showing my dad that, and then they were quite surprised because they never heard of, they're not really accepting of MMA as much as just say boxing at the time. So at that time, they're more acceptive
right.
now, right? Uh,
Yeah,
so would you say your first fight in one started this breakthrough now? Because there's loads of guys now.
yeah. Oh no, I mean absolutely. I mean what it did for sure is that I think it really opened up the possibility to everybody else. You know, like okay, you know that
Yeah,
we can do it too. It's not that that barrier was not there anymore. Of this, you know that it's going to be impossible for somebody to train in Pakistan and then compete internationally. Because
yeah,
I was training in Pakistan. I'd been training in
yeah.
Pakistan for 3 years by that
All
point. You
right.
know, so it wasn't like I was living in the United States or living in Thailand
Mm.
and then competing in one championship and representing Pakistan. I was living in Pakistan. I had been living in Pakistan for over 3 years at that point. And that's where I was training, and that's where I prepared for the most part for my match. I did the final 2.5 weeks in Singapore, but the rest of that time was all in Pakistan.
Yeah, because I remember you had in the documentary you had the apartment
Yeah,
complex and the little
yeah,
gym. Were you training
yeah.
there then for the one, or did you have another gym?
No, no, no. I had another gym by that point. Yeah.
All right, and so going from there, Shaheen Academy now. So what's the backstory behind that? Because I heard about that a bit later. I always heard of
Mhm.
Synergy, so I always saw
Yeah,
that online.
yeah.
So what's the difference between the two, and what's the back?
Well, so when I came to Pakistan, the first gym that I opened properly was called Shaheen. It was Shaheen Gym.
Yeah,
And what happened was is that as things got bigger after the first year, we decided to move to a bigger facility. And all the people that I knew, a lot of close friends, were like, you should probably change the name. You should make it something a bit more international
oh
sounding.
yeah,
This is too dissy. This is,
yeah,
people aren't going to be coming to this. And I was like, okay. And so I used I got Synergy because that was one of the gyms that I trained at in the United States that was run by close friends of mine. But then that gym shut down. So I took their logo, I took their website, everything. And
oh
I was just like,
yeah,
okay. And I'll just turn this into Synergy. Um, but over time, when I came with the intention to bring MMA to Pakistan, I kind of had this vision in my head that I would, it would be a place where people would be able to better themselves through martial arts. Like I envisioned people from poor backgrounds
yeah,
becoming champions and bettering themselves through martial arts and, creating that system for them. And, a few years down the road of, running this gym and competing, that was not, things weren't really how I wanted them to be. Synergy was doing well. I mean, for a martial
yeah,
arts gym in Pakistan, it was doing really, really well, but I wasn't really completely fulfilled. So, like I would have sometimes people come in, Synergy would be full and we'd have people come in and they'd want to join class, but maybe they'd be from Sharpin or
mm,
from a neighborhood that they couldn't afford our fees. And, you know, I'm like, I have plenty of people here that are training for free, but I can't take on anymore. And to have to turn somebody away, somebody who very
yeah,
possibly could be really hardworking and,
yeah,
want to make this a career. I didn't like that. I didn't like that, and I felt like a complete sellout. So, and then I made Shaheen, and so there was two different
mm,
gyms, and Synergy is now shut down. Synergy is now
okay.
closed,
So
but
it's done.
Shaheen, yeah, but
Oh,
Shaheen
okay.
is alive and well, and Shaheen is not going anywhere. And I think one of the reasons that Shaheen is not going anywhere is because Synergy was like a commercial enterprise that was really that revolved around me, around being there. But Shaheen, um, it's based upon a mission, and whether I'm there or not, that mission remains. And so it has a much stronger philosophical foundation upon which to rest. And so that's the kind of the backstory about Shaheen. And with this academy, we don't charge the kids. It's in a very poor neighborhood called Cheddar Bend. And for these kids, this team is something that for a lot of them, their life revolves around it now, and it's giving them discipline. They're doing well in school. They're keeping each other out of trouble. They're actively learning about things that they're probably not learning about in school, like mental performance. I send them science videos from time to time about like quantum mechanics and the universe and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm very happy with how things are going right now in Shaheen.
Uh, yeah. So speaking about Charapind, could you
Hmm.
give a more descriptive image of it to the listeners that may not know where we're talking about? Or
Yeah. So Cheddar Bend is a neighborhood that. So the story behind Cheddar Bend is that before Lahore spread out, right, in the modern era, Cheddar Bend was just a village on the outskirts of Lahore. And as Lahore spread out and suburbs came about, um, the people of Cheddar Bend refused to sell their land. So
okay,
what happened is that you have this small little village that is now surrounded by DHA, Defense Housing
wow,
Authority, which is a relatively wealthy neighborhood. Well, by Pakistani standards, it's actually a very wealthy neighborhood. And you can't call it a neighborhood actually. It's a large area of the city. Probably got a population of around maybe 100,000 actually, maybe possibly more. But so you have Cheddar Bend, which is right smack in the center, and the differences between DHA and Cheddar Bend are vast, and you see those differences within inches of crossing over the line. So you'll have these nice houses, and then a barbed wire fence, and and on the inside is Cheddar Bend. So what has happened? The dynamic that now exists between Cheddar Bend and rest of DHA is that a lot of the labor and the staff and the domestic help, they all come from Cheddar Bend, and they
okay,
supply the cheap labor for DHA. And so this is the place where I've set up Shaheen Academy.
wow. And talking about that environment, could you give an example of how Shaheen has changed a particular child's life? Or
Right. Yeah. Um, so, I mean, one example that we like to bring up because he was really the first kid at Shaheen is a kid named Abu Bakr.
oh, okay, yeah,
And have you heard of Abu Bakr?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah. So Abu Bakr, his mom used to clean the gym at Synergy, and she would bring him along. He was like 8 or 9 years old at the time. Actually, no, he was younger. He was 7 years old at the time, and he would come and he would watch, and we could tell that he was interested, but he'd never actually come down and train with us. He'd come every day with his mom, and he would sit on the stairs and look down at us training. And one day he decided we convinced him to muster up the courage and come train with us. And after that, he never left. But um, kids that he was with, some of them were smoking cigarettes at 6, 7 years old,
wow,
sniffing glue out on the streets, begging. And so these were some of the people that he would be interacting with, and that was one of the pathways that he had available to him. But now, he's going to a private school. Um, he had an opportunity to travel overseas to Singapore, and his life has changed. With Abu Bakr, it's kind of interesting because you learn a lot, he, over time with how to best manage these kids and how to bring out the best in them. Abu Bakr he kind of had a double-edged sword in his luck in that because he was the first kid, he got a lot of attention, a lot of media attention. There was a lot of stuff around him, and for that reason, actually, right now we struggle a little bit to getting him focused because he had this kind of
yeah,
this cushion in the beginning, and these kids, the other kids that are joined, they're catching up so fast. There's one kid that I have really really high hopes for. His name is Abdul Rahman, and he's probably the oldest out of like the young kids. So he's 16 years old, and I mean he comes to the gym early every day. He cleans the gym. He is super focused at school. His dad is very involved and will come down and help us if we need anything. And he's always telling us how much he notices a difference in Abdurrahman, and just his focus, his discipline, in his grades. And at the same time, he's like, you got to push him even harder, because
Yeah,
he
yeah.
knows his dad knows that the academy is a way for Abdurrahman to really maybe go to the next level. His dad, I think, is a carpenter, maybe. So I highly doubt that he's been to college. Maybe he might not have even done his metric. I'm not sure. But obviously, as a carpenter in Pakistan, he might be earning something like 150 US dollars a month, and I'm pretty sure that the rest of his extended family and his back family is the same way. So for his dad to have the confidence in us to want us to really push his kid and guide him on the right path to be somebody successful that can change the life of his family, of his siblings, and the generations afterwards. It's a really, really good feeling. It's a really, really good feeling. Abdurrahman, yeah, I have high hopes for him. There's other kids too. There's Zabiullah, that we have. His father passed away. We've got a couple kids like that whose fathers passed away when they were younger, and Zabiullah is somebody who's doing really well at school, but he has a government school, so it wasn't really bringing out the best in him. And we were able to get him also into a better school, and he's doing really well there. In fact, Zabiullah has the best grades out of anybody at the gym. So I mean, there's lots and lots of examples, And the thing is, it's not always perfect, We have kids that will show up and then they'll disappear,
Yeah, yeah.
Now we have kids that are doing well, but then something, the street gets them. It's not like 100% success case. I mean, anyone who has kids understands this. Somebody who has multiple kids and has seen them grow up. Parents can try to do their best, but in the end of the day, it's up to that individual and how they want to take it. It's just really about providing the right environment so that at the very least they are offered more positive choices than they would get otherwise.
Yeah, because when I was looking at the Shaheen kids and the launch code, the
Mm-hmm.
GoFundMe page, it hit
Mm-hmm.
me a lot because when I started MMA and started training,
Mm-hmm.
I was not the most confident kid, and then you see that
Yeah.
switch when you start training,
Right.
and like in the UK and maybe in America as well, we're quite fortunate to be able to pay to go training and
Yeah.
get the equipment what we need. Whereas
Yeah.
in these kind of areas, they necessarily don't have the opportunity. So um, that kind of campaign that you're doing right now is for a lot of people, I think it's relatable in the sense.
Yeah.
I think what I'm saying. And so moving on to that, why, if you could give reasons, why would you say it's necessary that we hit this goal? Is it 50,000?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
goal, yeah, of
50,000.
US.
Yeah.
Is it by the end of this month?
The 50,000 goal, I've set
Uh,
that for the end of this year. For the end of
End of
this
this year.
year.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm really happy that you asked that question because it's
Mm.
important to make note that so this GoFundMe was set up in 2016.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. This is the
Okay.
fifth year that we've been running this, right? And so we are at like $30,000
Mm.
right now. So we've run for 5 years almost on $30,000,
Wow.
right?
Oh,
So yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
thought it
yeah,
was
yeah,
yearly.
exactly.
I thought it was yearly.
Oh, no, no.
Oh,
This $50,000 is not per
okay.
year. Yeah, it's
Wow.
not per year. That's why I'm very glad you asked that question.
Okay.
It's not like it doesn't cost that much money. Are the
Okay.
costs going to go up as
Yeah, yeah.
time progresses? Of course, of course, and to be quite honest with you, like if someone were to just be like, bam, here's $50,000 to help run Shaheen, I would not be comfortable because we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that. But I set the goal high, and
Mm.
if we make it, great. If we get, if we make it, that'll be amazing. We'll be set
Yeah.
for a number of years. I mean, if by some chance we were to hit the goal of 50,000, I would be very tempted to pay maybe 3 or 4 years rent and just one go.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
one of the most important things is just to have that facility there. You know, that's one of the most important things, to have that facility there. And as long as that facility is there and it's a home for kids who want to train, it's a home for the team. Just the time will take care of the rest. And then everything else that we add on to it, the tutors, the trainers, the ability to send kids to private schools. That's just extra stuff that we're doing. So yeah, if we were to hit that goal of 50,000, I would be likely pay rent for a number of years. I would definitely begin to set aside money for that for use after I'm dead, quite
Okay.
frankly. Like maybe put aside 1,000, and then every year maybe add 100 to it,
Mm.
and put it into an index fund or something like that, so that when I am unable to do these fundraisers and stuff like that, there is something that has been building up over time to keep it going. Because I really
Yeah.
see the time scale that I have for Sheen is not a few years. It's not for somebody to go win
Mm.
some fights. My time scale for Sheen is it's 100 years. This is what I'm thinking. It's 100 years. That this if Shaheen collapses because God forbid I die early, or just I get old and I'm unable to do it, then I will in some way have failed. So yeah, we get that 50,000. Part of that would go towards there. Part of it would be now, because as these kids are getting older, their tuition expenses
Yeah.
increase. So it would definitely be going that. It would open up a lot of options for some of these kids to potentially go to university overseas. Like Abdul Rahman. Abdul Rahman is going to go to college next year, and so like for a lot of people listening, if they're listening from the
Wow.
States, like when they hear college, they're like, oh, college, like he's 16, why is he going to college? But I think it's the same in the UK. You go after, you have metric in the UK? You do, right?
Is it metric? No, we have like
Yeah, you have GCSEs,
you have
you turn
GCSEs, yeah,
you
yeah.
turn
Oh,
11.
okay. So at the
So
age of 16, you do that, and then you do college for 2 years,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
A
yeah, and then
level.
university. Yeah,
University,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So he's doing college right now. College probably won't be that expensive, so that 50,000 goal is kind of irrelevant there. But at age 18, if if he's got the grades and we can
Mm.
be able to send him to a university overseas, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. He could potentially go to university in Thailand, right? Because they have international universities here with the
Okay,
English
yeah.
curriculum. And he'll have a chance to train. He'll have a chance to spend time with me, and I can kind of guide him as to where we want to take him to be a leader, not only for Shaheen but for like the MMA community for Pakistan,
Mm.
right?
For
And
sure.
and at the same time, he's getting an international education with people from around the world. So these are some of the options that we're looking at. So is that 50,000 number like,
Wow.
oh, if we don't make that 50,000 number, are we in trouble? By no means. In fact,
Okay.
quite frankly, the amount that we've gotten so far, we will be able to cover rent for the year.
Okay, that's good.
That what we've got. Just so far. But obviously, we don't want to cover just rent. We want to
Mm.
pay our that come in. We want to. I have a manager, Muzammil, who you're familiar with.
Yeah, yeah.
Muzammil lives at the gym. You know, and
Great guy.
he lives there. Yeah, this guy doesn't go home. Like,
Wow.
every 2 weeks, he'll go home. But otherwise, he's made a room for himself at the gym. Actually, Abdul Rahman's father, because he's a carpenter. We
Mm.
got some scrap wood, and he like made a little makeshift room for himself. And as we if we get more money, closer to that 50,000 range, or not, it doesn't have to. It could be closer to the 40,000 range. We'll have money to add a proper room for him. To stay there. Whether we have a room for or not, we still have to pay him a salary. And he, I'm not gonna say how much he gets, but he doesn't really. He should get more. He should get more
Mm.
for based upon what he's doing. I mean, honestly, like I'm really blessed to have somebody like
Awesome.
Muzammil there, because his heart is really into the gym and the team. Yeah. So yeah, very good
I have to agree. I
question.
have to
Yeah.
agree with that one. And so you heard it, guys. We need that 50 Gs by the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Let's get that 50 Gs. And what's so we were talking about Sheen. So we've talked about how you first got there. What's the difference now in popularity of MMA from Pakistan till now?
To now, man, that is not always an easy question to answer
Oh
because
yeah,
there's
yeah.
always
It's quite
there's always
big.
like yeah, because there's always multiple angles with which to look at it.
Okay.
Like you could have a growing domestic scene. You
Mm-hmm.
could have 20 times as many athletes, 20 times as many gyms, more events, but the public at large still doesn't really care. You can have a
Yeah, yeah,
situation like
yeah.
that. So what I see right now is because of superstars like Khabib and Connor
Yeah.
and Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar. I think these four are really might be the main ones. Uh, MMA has definitely the awareness has grown in the mainstream, um, but I don't know how much that has translated into like really local a
Mm-hmm.
surgeon like local awareness. Now you have people like Alumi and Mujtaba and Bagad and Irfan and Memosh, a lot of
So
people,
many. It's
Abyss,
quite a lot. Yeah.
yeah, and they're getting fan followings, as well, and that's awesome. So there is a growth, um, but the biggest growth that I see is just in the scene at large. There are people holding events that I'm like, who are you? I've never even heard of you. When 5 years ago, it had been like, if you're running an event and I don't know who you are 95% not running an MMA event. You're running a kickboxing show that you put MMA on there on the flyer or something. You
Just,
know, you're doing something like that. But now there'll be like, I'll see a video online of like an MMA event. I'm like, when did this happen? And the guys, they're not bad. They're definitely not at the international, like professional international level where they could compete go outside of boxing and compete. But they're a lot better than what was going on when I was like running smokers
Because
at Synergy.
I was watching the Pack Fight Clubs
Yeah,
shows, and I was watching that years ago, and
yeah,
I was like, they're getting there, but it was
yeah,
still lacking
yeah,
at that
yeah.
time, right?
Right, right. So Pack Fight Club was like the premiere at the time, but
Was it?
now like the
Oh,
local show, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. So it was
yeah.
like the premiere. That's like the best of the best. And but now like the just the local shows, not even you can't even like just like these are random backyard shows. You could say they're the level of Pack Fight Club now in
Yeah,
Pakistan.
yeah, yeah.
So skill level has gone up dramatically. Dramatically. Like I mean the people who like are where I was like at starting out at 1-0
Yeah,
or debuting. They're better off than I was.
yeah. Because I wanted to ask that, getting into that, what stage
Hmm.
is Pakistani MMA in at the moment? Because in the UK, the MMA scene, right, we had great strikers about 10 years ago, great
Yeah,
strikers, but for example, Dan Hardy, Paul Daly, so they're
yeah.
great striking, but then their grappling was lacking. But now we've got very well-rounded guys such as Leon Edwards. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah,
So
yeah. After Leon Edwards, and there was this one guy, I think it was a heavyweight or on the heavier weight classes. He had like really, really good jiu-jitsu. Tall, lanky white guy.
Paul,
Yeah, Paul something. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Paul
um,
something.
Paul Craig.
A lot of triangles, I think.
Paul Craig, the Scottish
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So we got guys now where they're more well-rounded. So
yeah,
where is Pakistan right now at that moment? Using that
yeah.
example.
Right, right. So, okay, so the people at the top gyms, or I don't want to say use the word top gyms, but the ones gyms that are just more established and been
Yeah,
around,
yeah.
they are all like they're not one dimensional anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and they still might be where it's like Muay Thai plus Jiu-Jitsu,
Yeah,
which is really that's not MMA,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that gap is closing now too, because before someone who was really way ahead of the game in Pakistan, it was your Muay Thai plus Jiu-Jitsu,
Mm.
um, but those are like the low clubs, the new clubs that are just starting out. Now they're at like the Muay Thai plus Jiu-Jitsu. Some of them, and the thing is, you understand what I mean when I mean Muay Thai plus Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah,
They don't
yeah,
have those,
yeah.
yeah, they
They
don't
don't
have those
have the
transitions.
transitioning. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the clubs that have been around for a while, Fight Fortress,
Yeah.
3G, Paquito, CAX, a lot of clubs. Um, uh, they they are developing and they're training in a generally well-rounded, integrated MMA system.
Yeah.
Um, but some of the new clubs, they aren't. Um, it's going to take probably 10 years for the kind of the clubs that are out in the small cities and towns, who are not going to have the ability to travel to the big cities and train in the big places regularly. It's going to really take them 10 years, I think, to catch up with where the others are right now.
Synergy now. So that when did that exactly close? That gym?
I closed about maybe 2 years, no, 1.5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
About.
And when did you move to Thailand? Because you went Pakistan for a while, then you moved to Thailand. Was that
Yeah,
recent as well?
I moved to Thailand when I started working for One Championship. So that was in September of 2017.
Oh, okay. So for what? Because I'm just asking that because last year we came Pakistan and we wanted to visit the gym, but then I saw on your Insta you're in Thailand because we started this podcast actually in 2018. So
oh, really? Okay.
yeah. So I like to say we're the podfathers of Pakistani MMA podcast.
Yeah. Awesome.
But yeah, so we started the podcast and we were going to get a camera and we wanted to interview you there, but then I found out there's no more synergy and there's you were in Thailand. So how is it? So is Muzammil running everything in Pakistan then, essentially, and you're...
Well, if you're for Shaheen, yes. For Pakmma, Pakmma has a life of its own now, and there's lots of people that play a role. I have to definitely take a moment out to give Rizwan Judd a shout out. He's done a really good job. He does most of the work for the page and the social media, and he's really honestly he's probably the most the knowledgeable guy about Pakistani MMA right now. Yeah, he's really because he's managing a lot of Pakistani athletes and he's managing a lot of athletes internationally as well. So he's very well integrated into the MMA industry, and he's doing a lot of work. Nasser Khan Yusufzai from Cax's. They are Fight Fortress always there. Honestly, everybody who was there in the core in the beginning, everyone is kind of doing their own thing now, but it all serves that one overarching purpose of growing MMA in Pakistan. I like to call Pakmma the canvas upon which Pakistani MMA is being painted. So it doesn't need anyone to run anything, for me. Everyone is just doing their thing because they're passionate about the sport, and that's just lifting Pakmma up.
And I was listening to Franklin speaking, Rich Franklin's podcast, and there was something that I could really relate to. It was so when you came to Pakistan, was it in 2008? 2008?
Well, I've been visiting for a while.
You've been visiting.
When I decided to move was winter of 2009.
Okay, 2009, yeah. And you said that when you were living there for a bit, you felt American, and then when you're in America, you felt Pakistani. Because I had the same thing when I went last year. I felt British, and then when I'm in England, we're Pakistani. So
was that your first time in Pakistan last year?
No, I went first when I was 6, so there was a massive gap. So then I went. So I went in 2001, and then I went. So I went back in 2019. So that big gap. Because you said you said you went every, was it 2 years, 3 years?
About. So for you must have that must have been quite an impact.
That was a big shock. Some of the living. Plus we're living in Azad Kashmir, so it's more village. So that was a quite big difference from when you go there to Islamabad, for example. You get more used to it. So how was that difference? Because you said you came to show mixed martial arts. Did you get a negative response first from them thinking you're American? Did you get one?
Oh, yeah. So for the people who were into mixed martial arts, there wasn't a negative response at all. In fact, they were like, okay, we can trust this guy. Cause there was a little bit of they felt like, if it was like somebody from a traditional martial arts background who were brought in Pakistan and they were spearheading MMA, there would have been a lack of trust. And there would have probably been some politics and stuff like that. But because I was an outsider,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
those
that's
who were
one.
really, for those who were really into MMA, they were, I had no issues whatsoever. But for those who were already doing karate or boxing or wrestling, the wrestlers actually they were chill. They're like, yeah, this we can do this, but they weren't really interested. But for the boxers and the traditional martial arts, they were the ones that, yeah, they would give me crap. They're like, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how it works here. Um, I even had emails go out from people stating that I was an agent, like I was a Blackwater agent, come using MMA as this like cover so I could do like sabotage operations around Pakistan.
The
So
conspiracy.
there was, yeah, there was. But I would say it was never because like I had come from America, but it was more that I was bringing something new and that I
Okay.
didn't understand the way that it worked in Pakistan, and that was where I got a lot of resistance from people.
So a bit like Bruce Lee with the Jeet Kune Do, is it?
Yeah, maybe,
No,
maybe,
maybe not. But
yeah, like a lot of the things that people seem to just really get hung up on was just like, when are you going to make a federation? And it's like I was like, well, none of you guys know anything. No one knows anything. Like, what is the purpose of this federation? That everyone is so desperate for. Yeah,
and you said a comment that wrestlers weren't interested. Um,
yeah,
so there's a lot of top wrestlers in Pakistan. So for example, Inam Butt,
yeah,
time Commonwealth champion.
yeah,
Why
yeah,
haven't I still don't understand? I don't know if you can elaborate. Why aren't these wrestlers coming in?
yeah.
Because we see a lot of success with wrestlers in MMA. They go together
Hmm.
really well. So
Hmm.
why is it
Hmm.
the wrestlers aren't coming into the mixed martial arts scene as much?
Yeah, yeah. So, I'm actually more confused why they're not coming in now than before because there's so much
Okay,
more
yeah, yeah,
awareness, right?
yeah.
But before, the reason that they weren't coming in is because there was like for like a wrestler in Pakistan. I mean, even if they're 8, 10 years old, it's a lot like Muay Thai in Thailand. They can go and they can get a little bit of money.
Okay.
So if I'm 10 years old and I go wrestle, I might make 100, 200 rupees. I can bring that back to my family, give some to my teacher, and you can see, a way to earn from this. But for MMA, it's like, yeah, you have to come train. You might break your nose, and you don't get paid anything for a long time. And so it's just like it's not worth it. Why not just go through this system, be a wrestler, and either I can continue making money in these local dungles,
Yeah.
or maybe I get into a department and I get a job with one of these departments, and I get to compete in Asian Games or maybe go to the Olympics. There's a pathway that they can well understand and that they know that they can earn some money from as well. But for MMA, it was just like we see no point in that. Even though they're like, we can do that better than anybody else, and they look at me like we can do that, but it's just not worth it for them. And now I'm more confused now as to why we aren't getting more
Ex-
wrestlers in MMA because
yeah.
it's common knowledge. I mean, look at Khabib. Everybody in Pakistan
Exactly.
knows
I
Khabib.
want.
Everybody knows wrestler. Yeah,
Yeah. So you know when you were saying the guys that brought MMA to popularity there, like Habib Ronda, I was saying Habib must have had the biggest impact
oh, for sure.
because for Muslim
Hmm.
people, he's the first Muslim UFC champion, and
Right.
they like every time you ask someone who's the GOAT in MMA, they say Habib. If they're Pakistani
Yeah,
or
yeah,
someone, they
yeah,
don't know about
yeah.
GSP, John Jones. Habib's the
Right. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, because you're seeing a lot of guys now. They're wearing the hat, the Dagestani hat, and yeah.
yeah.
So moving on to that, MMA in. Do you think MMA needs better PR in Pakistan? For example, like ARY, Geo News, like because in the UK, BBC before they
Hmm.
didn't have a section for MMA, so big
Yeah,
major
yeah,
outlets here,
yeah.
but then now they even have a section for MMA now, like with
Okay,
boxing.
okay.
But in
Yeah.
Pakistan, it seems like just cricket and politics.
Right. No,
There's
I mean, you're
no
right. That's a really good question, and I wonder about that. Like, obviously these media companies, they're going to do what is going to maximize their profit, right? And so if they're doing what's going to maximize a profit, if they really don't see a demand there, then they're not going to bother doing anything. It's not their job to create a demand. So, but it's also very possible that they're ignoring a demand that is there. So it really comes a question is like, do they have the tools to see, what people are really, because you will see some MMA articles in the media.
yeah, but it's not.
Um, Yeah, it's not much. Yeah, yeah, it's just like it's nothing. Yeah, it's essentially zero. But every once in a while, there is some. So I wonder if they look at the feedback that they get from those articles. Is there, is there engagement there? Maybe we should add an MMA section. So it's a really good question because if there is a demand and they felt that they could, you know, boost their ratings and get some money, I'm sure they would do it. But if there isn't a demand, it's not up to them to create it. And so it's a really good question. Should I mean, if somebody wants to take a chance and try to create the demand and then maybe have a monopoly over being the source for mixed martial arts news in Pakistan, that would be great. Like I know ARY, they have some kind of association with Brave because when Brave
Oh,
came to
okay.
Pakistan, yeah, it was working with ARY, but I don't really don't know behind the scenes how that's worked out for them. Yeah, so I mean, like, I'm pretty sure that AR actually put in money to that Brave event as
Oh,
well that
okay.
happened in Pakistan. Yeah, so they had some skin in the game, but there's probably a lot of back dealings going on business wise, tit for tat that I'm not very clear about. So whether they really cared, whether they got ratings or not, or how that worked, I don't know.
Yeah. So do you think that for there to be a bigger PR, would there need to be an international champion, so one champion or a brave champion? Do you think that will probably
Oh, of
hit?
course. Champions always help. Yeah, champions always help because then that promotion is going to push extra heavy to the local media in that
Mm,
country. To push that athlete. And so it kind of it works in a cycle where then that media is wants to get more information on that champion, and the promotion is sending more information about that champion to the media. And so it just kind of works synergistically. So yeah, absolutely. And for the mass public to see that big shiny piece of gold,
yeah. Yeah.
it helps. I mean, you could be a champion in a small organization and still get over the top hype. Probably more than is deserved based upon the belt that you've won. But just because you have that visual there, it
Exactly.
helps. Now, if you were to be a champion of a legitimate top tier organization, then yeah, then I think it would help a lot. I think it could completely change the game. But then at the same time, if that person is say champion for two defenses, and after that they're not a champion and they just like go downhill, then what happens? We can't say. What
Yeah.
the fans going to be like. It's just going to disappear.
Because you know what it is? It's quite hard balancing everything. Because I watch UFC, Bellator, kickboxing, and
Oh,
all
I
that, and
know.
then
There's
you got
just so
one.
much, so much now. Yeah, there's so much content. Yeah, I mean, I remember, and in a way, I kind of miss the days when there would be just like this one event
Yeah,
that you're
yeah.
waiting 2 months for, and everyone's getting together. It's like, oh my God! But now it's just every weekend,
Every
and it's great.
weekend.
It's great. The sport has grown so much, but it's just you can't. It's really hard to keep track of it. You'd have to be a full-time journalist, or analyst to be keeping track of everything that's going on.
Yeah, because that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast is to kind of
Mhm.
promote fighters around the world,
Yeah,
especially like Pakistani fighters, because we're obviously
yeah,
Pakistani, and
yeah, yeah,
you were definitely like one of the first guests I had in mind to have on, anyways,
yeah, yeah,
when we first
yeah.
started this,
Yeah.
because I'd been following all your one championship fights,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, so hopefully we'll get more because I'm seeing I saw Irfan Ahmed now, he's on
yeah,
his
yeah,
fight, and then you
yeah,
had Anita Kareem, so you're seeing a few
yeah,
people
yeah.
now. Who would you say is the next person in to kind of represent Pakistan in one? Would you say it's Irfan or is it a full?
Um, Man, you can't say because Irfan and Nita both have to
Yeah,
really. I mean,
yeah.
they're both new in their careers, and they're going to have to go through the gauntlet of One Warrior
Mm,
Series, and the matchups that they're going to come ahead of them. It's not going to get easier. So, could they be the ones? Oh, absolutely, they have everything there to. The ingredients are there. It's
yeah,
just really about do they take the right steps that they need to take um, on that path? Whether and that's the right steps in terms of how they manage themselves, how they manage preparation for each match, how they manage the attention and popularity that comes with each time they win. If all these things come together and they move on to one championship and get the contract, then they can be. I can say this much is that I feel that if either of these two make it to one championship through one Warrior Series, they will be a force to reckon with in their respective divisions.
Okay, and
I don't see these two coming through one Warrior Series, the one championship, and
if
being
you're
chumps.
not ready,
And
and because the dynamic between MMA now and boxing is, in boxing you work your way up, right? You have 15, 20 fights, you fight less caliber fighters, and then eventually you get the top fighters. In MMA, it's you fight 3-4 fights and you're in with a freaking former champion.
Right.
So
but it's changing. It's changing. It's going more towards the way it is in boxing, and you can see that. You can see that with a lot of athletes. Yeah, because you see, like, before, if 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, for sure, if you saw somebody who was 10-0, they fought really hard guys. You see somebody now who's 10-0, you got to look at the record closely, because they may have fought just a bunch of complete newbies.
Journeyman.
So so. I mean, not even journeyman. So sometimes they're fighting people
0-5.
So it's the management of athletes is becoming a lot more like boxing, and it's becoming more and more. People are very, very protective of their records. And it's a good and a bad thing. I guess it comes with the expansion of the business side of things. But the kind of like the era of like, I'm just going to fight. I'm going to fight whoever. Those are kind of disappearing. Like those fights only happen when people feel everything is in line for them. No one's going to be like, I want this challenge. I'm going to fight, the toughest fight that I can.
When I first watched one, they were called One Fighting Championship, and there was a lot of mismatches. So you had a few guys who were like super well-rounded, and then you had one guy who was just a striker. But then now we're seeing that big gap, because a fighter that comes to mind for me is Kevin Bellingon. He had really good striking, and then his ground game, but now he's become like a complete fighter, right? But he won the belt.
Well, I think that's just a result of the evolution and development of the sport, because especially someone like Kevin, right, who is just on all those Team Mackay guys who are so good, go back like 8-9 years ago, if you had put them up against someone who may not have been so stellar in MMA but just had good wrestling, they would have might have made easy work of them, and so the matchups are gonna the way the matches play out are gonna be different. But now as the sport develops, and there are really no more one-dimensional people anymore. Even if and even if you are one-dimensional by today's standards, you aren't one-dimensional by the standards. It's very different now.
So what is your like background? So exactly, because obviously when you start training,
martial arts background.
Because obviously.
So when I first started training, I was not interested in MMA. I didn't actually know too much about it. Like I had seen the UFC, like UFC 1, that kind of stuff. Style versus style, and whatnot. But when I first started training, I actually started training in like combatives and self-defense things.
Oh, okay.
Like like Krav Maga, Japanese traditional jiu-jitsu, And as I was training that, I was like, well, I don't want to wait until somebody attacks me to know if this stuff works, right? Because those classes didn't really have much live sparring either. So and then I joined a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, then started doing Muay Thai, and then I was like, okay, so this is what I need to do in order to feel comfortable, like, if something happens. Like, I'm a big proponent of, you have to train in a combat sport in order to train self-defense. You can't go to a self-defense class and like do this thing, or like when somebody does this, you do this, and then you like it's not going to work, because the minute somebody actually attacks you, right, with the intention to hurt you, you're going to have so much adrenaline going through you that everything that you've learned is just completely irrelevant. It just goes out the window. But once you put yourself in those situations that someone is trying to actually hurt you, I mean, like, no one should be trying to hurt you in sparring, but they are trying to hit you.
Yeah.
They are trying to hook you. They're trying to,
Try and knock your head off.
that choke is in. Yeah, yeah. And so you are put in a situation where someone is going close to full force. Close to a situation that you get if you were in a self-defense situation. And so when a self-defense situation you've probably been in that situation more than your attacker has.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you haven't done any live sparring, if you haven't done any combat sports, then someone who is attacking you, they've likely been in more violent encounters than you have, and been in more situations where people are, in aggressive situations with other people than you have. Within the soccer mom who's taking a class once a week for self-defense, or the father who wants to learn something to protect his family, and he gets attacked by some a hooligan or some drunk guy or whatever, that guy is probably used to street fighting, so he's comfortable there. But the soccer mom or the dad or the teenager or whomever who's just doing that self-defense class and has never been in that situation, when that happens, they just lock up, But if now that person had been taken combat sports, had grappled, wrestled, and done that hundreds of times, well, maybe that guy who was attacking you, they may have had 5 street fights. Well, guess what? You've had 200 encounters with trained people in practice. So that situation is now going to be very different.
Yeah, because I noticed that a lot of people don't understand the level between an amateur fighter, a pro fighter, and what they can actually do to a normal civilian, for example.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that within training MMA, why would you say it's necessary for people to start training and understand how it is to get hit in the face? And because you see a lot of the times where fighters are really calm people generally compared to normal people. Normal people are just aggro, and then
Well, I mean, it just kind of goes back to saying is that you need to put yourself in a situation where someone is trying to punch you or kick you or pick you up and throw you onto the ground, and be mentally calm enough in order to give some kind of counter, in order to defend yourself in that sparring situation. If you don't put yourself there, you are not going to get better. It's pretty much impossible, But at the same time, and the advice I'm going to give now really applies to even seasoned professionals and people just starting out. You also don't want to be in a place where your sparring is so hard that you're taking damage. I've trained with Demetrius Johnson at AMC, and I spent maybe close to 3 weeks there. And that place, honestly, it opened my eyes. Matt Hume he's a genius when it comes to martial arts. He's a smart guy all around. But when you get an answer from Matt Hume about something related to mixed martial arts or martial arts, you don't even bother going anywhere else, because it's just that knowledge that guy has just so high level. And the sparring that they do there, at other gyms, if someone to come and spar at other gyms, people might joke around about it or be like, whatever, this guy doesn't like to spar hard, he's not tough enough, because it's not that they go light, right? But they are very, very controlled. They are very, very controlled, and the pace is high. The pace is fight speed, right? But the power, especially to the head, is extremely controlled. I trained with Mighty Mouse, and I'm heavier than Mighty Mouse, right? But he was training for a Dominic Reyes fight before he had to pull out the first one. He got a shoulder injury or something like that. But so was
it Dominic Cruz?
No, Dominic Reyes, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. I don't think they ever ended up fighting each other.
Juicy Formiga.
Maybe his last name Reyes. Dominic Reyes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But anyway, it was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy in the flyweight division. Pretty sure it was Dominic Reyes. Oh, Wilson Reyes. Wilson Reyes. That's
Wilson
what it
Hayes,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you on about
Yeah.
Jusei
Yeah.
Formiga because he's another.
Yeah.
Okay, Wilson
Oh,
Hayes,
okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So I think you're supposed to be fighting him.
Mm.
And he was at the edge of fight camp, right? So he's, getting ready to go. So he like sparring is going to be ramping up. And, I sparred with him and he didn't slow down. And I mean, he crushed me, right? He crushed me, but like he did not try to hurt me, He hit me in the head, like solid, like, I don't know, 100 times, right? But it was all controlled. Like I had been hit much harder by even people smaller than him in other gyms just because they're trying to like hurt me, trying to blast me, right? And it's just really not necessary to be, especially for new people, to be sparring so hard that you're uncomfortable and you're flinching. You have to work your way up. Like you take somebody brand new, and even you throw like a really slow light punch, they might flinch up, right? And so to put them into a situation where the sparring is not at the level that they require, that can be detrimental. Then you're not gonna be able to begin to feel comfortable. So while sparring is very important and having that contact is very important, it's also very important for everything to be controlled and for you to trust your training partners and to be at a place with partners and a coach and a facility where the culture is such that getting hurt, if that ever happens, everyone feels like they failed. It's not like, it's part of the game. Yes, it does happen, right? But everyone collectively at that gym should feel like we did something wrong and we have to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, so the sparring experience. So you talked about how when you first came to Pakistan, the MMA, and you had the traditional martial artists, right? Is there a lot of McDojos in Pakistan, would you say? You heard that term, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot. And you have to just really feel bad for some of these people, because,
Bit cultish,
they don't have the same access to things. And then secondly, for a lot of these people, I mean, and it's really the same everywhere, but it really kind of makes it more tragic when there are people who might be living close to or in poverty situations where it's like, they're a black belt and they're very well respected in their neighborhood and by their students and stuff, but it's just garbage. The knowledge base that they have and everything is just frankly just garbage, and it's just really hard. And, we've had people like want to call them out, and I've really not been a fan of that, like I just feel like it's kind of kicking somebody when they're down. Like, yeah, I understand that a lot of these, kind of these McDojo people and the fake black belts, they are a liability to the people that they're teaching, but I think there has to be some sense of sympathy on the part of the MMA community when it comes to this. Because nowadays, if somebody started training from 10 years ago and they're a black belt in Hu Flung Pu or, some kind of weird garbage martial art, there's a little bit more room for criticism there, but when I first started, and like even people in the United States hadn't been exposed to mixed martial arts yet, I just kind of felt like it was wrong to really, criticize people too harshly when they just really hadn't had the chance, and it must be so crushing to, especially if someone who's like 40, 50 years old, to have spent decades training in a martial art and be faced with this realization that it's not going to work, this reality that it is not going to work, and that's clear, it's not even a basis of argument. There's just evidence-based like facts, like on a weekly basis in the form of like mixed martial arts events, and then you can delude yourself into being like, yeah, well, I'll kick them in the balls and stuff like that. But I can kick somebody in the balls too, that doesn't require training.
Yeah, because have you seen that video of that guy where he uses energy and then he gets...
Oh, yeah, there's lots of them.
Oh, my God. Yeah, so, like, how do you think it gets to that point? Because is there something like that kind of cultish behavior? Is that...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think 90% it comes down to people like, okay, either you are brand new to martial arts, right? And you go in and maybe you don't want to offend the coach, right? Maybe he's doing something just like, well, I'll just go along with it. It's not really working, right? But I'll just go along with it because I don't want to burst everybody's bubble. and then maybe like you get a long term, and over time you're like, oh yeah, it is working, right? Or maybe you've just been with that coach for so long. Maybe you started with that coach when you were 5 years old, right? And you looked up to them as having all the answers, and then they're like, okay, well, see, I'm going to use this. In fact, actually, it's funny that you say that because I actually did an experiment like way back in the day when it was like the first Shaheen in like 2010, where I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to show you a technique where I like harness my chi and something like that. And I did it on one of my students, and it worked. And I was like, guys, this is why this is dangerous, and why like not questioning things and why just listening to everything that your coach is telling you or your teacher or anything is dangerous. It's like, this doesn't work. I know that it doesn't work, but you went along with it anyway. I remember that now, and it was Snowbird. I remember the student's name too.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I can see like how that happens, and it's just unfortunate. Is there some truth to like being able to harness energy and stuff? Maybe, maybe. Like I know people can do some crazy feats. Like if people can, untrained people who are just out of shape can pick up cars if someone's trapped underneath them.
Yeah, but
freak things can happen. There is some kind of energy in our body. Maybe it's our nervous system or whatever. But I don't think any of these martial arts that you see online have tapped into that.
Okay, and just to before we end it, I just want to ask you a few little questions. So to start off, your favorite striking technique?
My low kick. It's got to be the low kick.
Okay, and
yeah,
grappling techniques or submission?
Submission, north-south choke.
Oh, no, it's not. And
yeah.
Your favorite color?
My favorite color?
Yeah.
Green or black? Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite color. Oh, it's maybe black. Yeah.
Favorite animal?
Favorite animal? I don't know. Maybe a wolf. Yeah.
Oh, wolf. Okay.
I mean, look, you're talking to the guy.
Yeah, because I just saw that and I was like, oh damn, I should have asked that one.
Yeah, that's like WWF. I don't know if I have a favorite animal. Maybe I'll say a vulture because I adopted the vultures as part of a WWF campaign. Yeah.
And if you could fight one fighter, open weight class, who would it be?
Yeah, it would have to be. Oh, okay. One. So I would like one, but like but at what part of their career? Because I would definitely fight Brock Lesnar.
Let's say their prime. Yeah. That's prime. Gun to the head.
In their prime? Oh man, in their prime. Fight somebody in the prime. It would have to be Conor McGregor because I would make a bunch of money off of it. Yeah, I'd make a big bunch of money too. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I would have had Sakuraba or something. Okay.
Well, no, I love Sakuraba. Yeah, I love Sakuraba. But if you're like think about it in the prime, it's like, well, I'm gonna get my ass kicked by anybody regardless, right? So why not choose the guy that I would probably make a whole bunch of money off from?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But if it was just based upon who I'd want to share the ring with in terms of respect, then yeah, it would be Sakuraba.
Oh, okay. And so before we end it, could you just talk about where they can donate for Shaheen Academy?
Yeah. So you can go to gofundme.com/ShaheenKids. Okay. Or if if somebody has a Box Money bank account, they can deposit it directly into the bank account, and I'll send that information in a screenshot too. You can post it in the link or whatnot. But it's a Ascari bank account. You can just do it online. And that'll be simple. And then we won't be deducted any fees, like platform fees that GoFundMe takes.
Okay, we'll also be putting the link in the description as well for the listeners. And I'd just like to say that and how can they help this cause?
Yeah, well, I think the number one thing, there's three main things that people can do. One is they can donate, right? And that doesn't have to be financial. It can also be their time. It could be equipment. It could be things for the gym. The spread the word. Just follow us and just get out there. And then we would really, really like to have a bigger team of people to help us. Volunteers. If you want to come And if anyone is living near the gym, or even now, because we're using so much video conferencing, if someone wants to do just like teach the kids over video call, I'm doing video calls with the kids almost every day right now.
Wow.
So yeah, so in fact, it's one of the things that we want to do if we hit certain benchmarks is to get like a nice kind of a nice monitor and a camera so we can do some proper. Right now, they're using this really old laptop that's going to give out any day now, right? So it'll be really good for video calls. But yeah, I mean, if people want to, and it could be anything. It just doesn't have to be martial arts. It could be mental performance. It could be how to garden. It could be diet and nutrition. It could be how to manage your time. It could be anything that you feel that you could teach this team, these kids, on that will make them a better person, a more productive person, a happier person, a more fulfilled person, a person who's more capable of giving back to society. Absolutely, we will definitely love to have you teach, whether it's in person or via video.
So you heard it, guys, and I just wanted to say that I've been a big fan of your career, what you've done for MMA in Pakistan. It's nice to see the growth now, and I hope to see you in the future. So hopefully we get some future episodes, and hopefully I could visit in Thailand one day as well, maybe.
Yeah, you got to. It's everybody who loves sports got to come visit once.
Okay, and nice to see you. Hope to see you soon. See you later. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Welcome.
Hi guys, so I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. So I'd like to just thank Bashir, Somchai Ahmad and Shaheen MMA Management for setting up this interview. And if you want to see more of these, like, share, comment and subscribe to the podcast. Thank you. Bye.